So I'm just another bozo on the bus, really, as they say in 12-step programs, truly. As long as there is that melding of two hearts and that melding of understanding on a heart level. I mean, that's what I hear is the language of the heart. And that is what makes me realize it's like the whole, definition of namaste, right? The light in me sees the light in you, and in that light we're one. Because there's a saying, an old saying, we're only as sick as our secrets. But how true it is. When I have a secret, it's no good. Not only am I putting a ton of effort in trying to maintain the secret, but also it eats me up and corrodes me from the inside out.
Welcome to Amy Liz Harrison's podcast, Eternally Amy, a mum of 8's journey from jail to joy, a Gen Xer who overcame her struggle with alcohol to become a best-selling author and mental health advocate. She shares stories of hope and offers ideas for others struggling with mental health challenges. One thing is for sure, you'll leave with something to chew on. And now, here's your host, Amy Liz Harrison.
Okay, welcome back to Eternally Amy, or welcome. If you haven't listened before, I'm Amy Liz Harrison. Today, I got to tell you, I'm blessed because I have my friend Tamar on the show. And sometimes you meet someone and you just see a spark in them, and that spark kind of ignites your spark. And it's just like you see this person who's got your same spirit, right? That's how I felt when I met Tamar. And she is so many things. She's a podcast producer. She's my podcast producer. She is hilarious. She's accepting. She's kind. She is loving. And she and I just have so many things that we share in terms of our backgrounds. And so I'm so happy she's here today. And hi, friend. I love you.
I love you too. Are you trying to make me cry right off the bat?
I'm sorry.
We just before this had a conversation about being women who are in their midlife and all the fun things we go through and how we need to keep more organized. And I'm like, okay, you're pulling at my heartstrings, Amy.
Well, because she's a genius and she created this app, and it just really was like one of those moments where it was like, did you sneak inside my brain and decide what I needed? Because this is the app that I need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good time. I love this stuff. We're going to do something a little different today, aren't we, Amy?
Yes.
So we thought it would be fun. First of all, Amy is currently in the development phase of a new app. I believe we've settled on Pen Pals. Is that correct?
Pen Pals.
Pen Pals. So we're not going to, let's just say it's going to change your life.
Mhm.
So you're listening, you're thinking you need to write a book. You don't know how. I have been in this position, and now I've written 4 because of tools like this. So Amy is creating that for you, and we are supporting her in that development. That's why I thought I would announcement. And I'm like, I'm going to steal your thunder here, Amy, but
That's great.
it is all about you. But a part of that, of course, was looking at Eternally Amy as a show because, you've been listening. There's all these things you can probably relate to in the show, especially if you're a mom. I mean, I don't know if I would love for, if you're a mother of 8, let's even say 6 or 4, write in to Amy because we have 3 children that are all neurodivergent, all have special needs. And I don't know how you do it. So I just
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you.
yeah. So what are we going to do today, Amy?
I think we're going to have you ask questions. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I will do my best to answer them. And I'm hoping you don't ask them in a Jeopardy type format because I will forget to say, what is blah, blah, blah.
Okay, if
So,
we went there, I would forget what questions I'm going to ask you.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. We thought it would be fun for you to get to know Amy. Now you've heard everything, but you're going to hear a little bit more behind the why of why she picked you, right, to focus on. And so we're just going to start off with we'll ease and gentle, and no, we will not do the Jeopardy. I would suck at Jeopardy, by the way, because I have to I might be smart, but I have to think about things for a little bit.
Yeah.
So let's start off with Amy. I would like to know who you are, and not your bio, because I think as podcasters, we will automatically kind of divert to what we think makes us sound smart and polished and put together. And that's not the purpose of this. That's, we, as you know, as your podcast producer, we don't focus on the polished part of it. We focus on the more personal. So not your credentials, but who are you really?
So I'm just another bozo on the bus, really, as they say in 12-step programs, truly. I am all those things, right? Like I'm a mom of 8, I'm an author, I teach meditation, I'm a former English teacher, all of that stuff. I'm a wife to an executive. So I'm in a lot of different wheelhouses. I'm a former evangelical / recovering evangelical turned spiritual person. And basically, I'm a lifelong learner. And I would say because of that, that's one of the main drives for me to be a podcaster, for me to be a writer, is that I get to talk to such interesting people. And we get to share ideas and we get to share tools and we get to learn from each other. And one thing I'll share as I kind of wrap up that thought is that when I was in college on my graduation day from my undergrad, I was sitting in the back row with one of my friends, and she said, I'm so glad we're graduating because I never have to learn anything new again. And I was like, what? First of all, I was like, I think you're going to have to learn a lot of new stuff. Like, we don't have jobs, you know what I mean? Like, there was that whole thing. But also because I know what it feels like to be in that position of learning new things where it's really scary because I don't know how to do something. And oh my God, everyone's going to think I'm a loser. Everyone's going to find out that I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm going to be exposed. And so you'll just see all my insecurities come out. But that is the joy for me of being a lifelong learner is, I've got all these kids. If they see me get stuck in my ways, first of all, I'm going to be left behind. All right. Real quick. And then secondly, I'm going to become one of those old ladies. And you know the ones I'm talking about, those curmudgeon-y old ladies who just have this like, this is right, this is wrong, my opinion is right for everyone. And really, that's what I don't want to avoid. And I won't mention who it is, but there are some people who have been that guru for me where I have seen that's where I don't want to go.
Yeah.
And so it's been a motivator. But that was a really long answer to the who am I question. Another bozo on the bus.
But we love you for that. And that's okay because you're being real, right?
Thanks.
And I, when you were,
yeah,
I know when you were talking about the not having to learn more, I'm like, really? Is that even possible? Because whether we like it or not, we are going to learn.
Oh, yeah.
It's not always what we want to learn, but it's definitely what we need to learn. So,
yep.
I love that. You're a publisher. I think most people know that of you. You help people write and publish their books, but why does that actually matter to you? You know, what is the real reason behind why you've chosen this path for yourself?
I really believe that everybody has a story to tell and that everybody is capable of being a storyteller. And when I got sober, there was a lot of drama around my need to get sober. I had a DUI. I was pulled over for that DUI right after school got out in the middle of our town. And so all these people drove by and saw me doing my sobriety field test on the side of the road. And I mean, there was no hiding anymore. I mean, the cat was officially out of the bag. And so I realized a lot of people had created an idea in their mind of who I was, what happened to me, blah, blah, blah. And when I got to the point where I had done a lot of work, so this was about 10 years sober for me, I really got to the point where I realized if I don't tell my story in my voice, somebody else will. Even down the road, when I'm dead and gone, somebody else will look at the family tree, right? And go, oh, that's her. That's the girl who drove drunk with 4 of her kids in the car. And I wanted to set the record straight and explain why that was. You know, I wanted to explain the disease of addiction, how it affected me. And I wanted to tell that story in my own words. And I believe everybody can do that. And really, I think it's important. If you've got kids, if you've got any kind of mark that you're currently leaving on the world, whether it's through your job or your plans, your dreams, your endeavors at any level, I think it's important to tell it in our own voice because it may be the same circumstances as somebody else, but it's different and it's individual because we're individuals.
Mm-hmm. And the reality, and I think as I've gotten to know you and spend more time with you in person, is that I think there are so many, especially women and men, but women in particularly, that we kind of look at our story like, well, we compare, right?
Yeah.
We look at, well, you know, for me, an alcoholic, and you and I have had this discussion, is somebody who drinks vodka in a brown paper bag, is homeless, and lives under a bridge.
Mhm.
And I don't know the statistics to this, but I would not be surprised if it's actually more common for women that are, part of the mummy wine culture
Mhm.
that are struggling with substances, doesn't matter what it is, than the stereotypical addict or alcoholic. And I
Yeah.
think that is what makes your story so special. And, your listener, if you're sitting there going, "Ugh, I relate, like I don't consider myself an alcoholic. I don't want to label myself, but
Mhm.
I know that like at the end of the day, I mean, with you, Amy, 8 children, of course you want to numb things out. And not because you don't love your children, but it's a lot and life is a lot.
Yeah.
So what do we do? Because as women, we are responsible for a lot,
Mhm. Yep.
right? So
So true.
I feel like that makes our stories even more special and
Mhm.
needed to be told even more so because even though we may think, oh, this is just my life,
Mhm.
how many people could you touch by actually sharing your story and writing about it?
100%. And the thing that I'd love to tack on to that thought is that power of community. And if I don't share what's going on inside me, chances are somebody else isn't going to want to share. And I only know that from being in a lot of Bible studies over the years where the prayer requests were always for, please pray for my cat because my cat is having surgery, which is God bless the cats. I'm not saying that's not important. However, it was never anything about real struggle or real, it was always, let's keep the walls up so that I can have some impression management here at church. And so that didn't really build any community for me.
Mm.
Only through sharing my struggle, and then somebody else could share theirs. And it's like, then we light that candle together.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So there are people out there listening right now, um, who have a story that they've never told anyone. They think that maybe it's too messy, it's too dark, or on the flip side, like we did, right? It's just not interesting enough.
Mhm.
What do you say to that person?
I say it's BS. You have a story in you for sure. And I want to say that because this is a common one that I hear a lot is, well, I'm really not comfortable talking about my story, or I can't talk about my story because my parents are still alive and they're a part of it, or, I might hurt someone's feelings, or, and all of that is totally valid and important. However, there are so many different ways to tell your story respectfully, and the subject matter almost doesn't even matter as much as it matters to just really leave nothing for the final lap of the mile. You just really, if you can share about those feelings and really get those out, then the storyline and the arc kind of takes care of itself. And there are creative licenses that you can sort of use to generally talk about your story. And those specifics sometimes don't always need to be named. You can change people's names, you can change places, anything that are sort of identifying markers you can make a different plan for. And so I would love to just express to people that, like, everything is doable. I've never read someone's manuscript or talked to somebody and been like, man, that's a shitty idea. Like, your life is really whatever, boring, not worth talking about, blah, blah, blah. I just have never done that unless it's been in a Bible study where it's been like, oh, I was a sinner and now I'm not, and my life is perfect. And then I'm like, oh, all right. Well, we're not the same.
Well, and so said no one ever, because I
Right.
think you make a good point, is that there are so many people out there, and my wife is a really good example. She was raised, again, conservative Christian, and she was a pastor at one point and was always told, your problems don't matter, right?
Mm,
You focus on other people, which in the recovery community, we definitely focus on other people. That is
mhm,
how we stay sober, is by being of service, by helping others. And that can also take you out of your head, right?
mhm,
So if I'm having a horrible day and you call me about a crisis, guess what? I'm probably not thinking about the thing that's going
mhm,
on in my life. And instead, I'm like, okay, I'm going to love on you, and whatever you need, I'm here for you. And I think that that is so important, right? And part of that opening the door is by sharing the things you're going through, because when my wife and I did a podcast, we had people reach out to us in the community that said they know that they've been attracted to the same sex for a long time. They just could never do that because they were told that it's wrong, right? So, how many
yeah,
people out there are living a lie, are living with so much tension inside their
mhm,
heart? Like, it is scary with those, especially, that's a whole different podcast episode.
mhm,
But I think, and one of the questions I want to ask you is that I thought it was really powerful when I wrote my first book. I did publish it. My parents were a little bit horrified, but it made more sense to them now. They understood now how they could support me and help me in my journey. So I don't regret publishing it. My mom
mhm.
said, if you were here, I would bend you over my knee and give you a spanking. But I just want to say I'm so grateful you're alive.
Yeah.
So that was kind of funny. But what would you say to the person that like they know they have all this stuff in, maybe it's their religion, maybe it's, the people around them. They want to write it out, they want to get it out, but they're not quite sure if they can publish it. Would you
Hmm.
encourage them to go ahead and at least write it, get it out?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one reason, in 12-step work and also in school, they still teach that mind-hand connection of writing, even though we're in such a typing era. They that's what they teach is like, okay, let me make this connection. Let me personify what I'm writing, what is coming out of me. And I think that um, the biggest thing to realize and sort of get over, if you will, is that it's not a matter of usually uh, owning your own space or not. Usually those kind of narratives come from situations, at least for me, in the past where I've shared something personal and someone has taken advantage of that and then, gone and told a bunch of people. So a lot of times when our trust with people has been broken, it's just really hard sometimes to get over that. And so sometimes I would say that maybe the time isn't right yet, and that's absolutely fine. And some of us need to get outside help and go to counseling or therapy or whatever modality we decide on. And that is really helpful to kind of help us process through some of this stuff. So sometimes we're just not in a space where we're healed enough or ready. And sometimes we're just still really mad at some people and we have a lot of resentments to work through. And so that's all okay. And it's all part of the process, really. It's all part of that story. And so, really, if anything, when you get to the point of actually publishing, it's going to make it that much better and sharper because really what it does is make you someone who holds that lantern of hope for other
Mhm.
people.
Ugh, I love that. And I just want to, we talked about the app when we started recording, is I think that is one of the special things about the app that we're developing for you. And, you shared all your insights and what it's like to write. And, it's when I started, I listened to podcasts and did all that stuff, but we've taken all that and put it into an app where you can actually start to construct a book
Mhm.
in it can be all totally different orders. So you could actually go into the app and start constructing chapters, even do moments where you're just doing a little bit. You're getting it out of your head on into a safe place, a safe, secure space where you can start telling your story. And then
Mhm.
when you're ready, it'll teach you how to put it all together so you
Yeah.
can publish a book. So I think that is one of the cool things about the app. Not only will it teach you how to write, it's not
Mhm.
going to do it for you, but it's also going to house and be a safe space if you want to start sharing parts of your story, right?
100%. I mean, the app is amazing for that because sometimes people know that they want to tell a story, but they just kind of don't know how to tell it. And
Mhm.
so, which is totally normal, by the way. And so sometimes what they want to do is just get some of this out and really I'll be talking to people sometimes and I'll say, what do you think is the main message that you would want to share with the world? And they're like, well, it could be this or it could be that. And we start talking through the things that they've been through. And the message kind of pops up organically, it just comes out on its own. And so to have an app to help that process be accomplished in a tangible way it's amazing. It's a really um, powerful and empowering experience for someone. Because I've had people write entire books through voice memos on their phone. I've had people write Post-its, just different ideas down on Post-its, and then bring over all these Post-its, and we're kind of like doing a puzzle and placing them together. And, it's just a really cathartic process, and it's really fun. And it really starts to show the value in using your story to help someone else, because it's like, oh, this is even helping me. Like, I even feel good about this. And the things where you don't feel good about, maybe those things don't need to be shared yet. Or again, as I said, they can be shared in a different way. But to have the app help you organize what's really kind of unorganized between your ears is really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, Amy, you've lived a story that most people probably would have kept hidden, right? Based on your upbringing, what you've been taught. What changed for you? Like, what was that moment that you decided that your story was actually worth telling?
Well, COVID was when I wrote my first memoir, and I was just ready. I just knew in my spirit I was ready. I had heard for many years, and really writing for me had been something that was in my blood since childhood. My friend down the street and I used to make construction paper books, and we would staple them together, and we would do drawings that would go along with some kind of a story about strange characters or whatever. And so I've always had that writing bug and that creativity lean in my life. And so my story being told, it was sort of a natural extension of that, and about where I was in my life, coupled like emotionally and spiritually, and sort of healed, in a place of being healed enough to tell it. And also, that this thing had kind of worked for me, that I had done this lifestyle of sobriety for now a decade. And so it wasn't just like sort of like, well, I got sober, 6 months ago, and which is great, by the way. 6 months is huge, but like, I think it held a little bit more depth and weight, that I had some actual years behind it of doing the work and practicing the steps and the principles. And so it was just time. It was just time to tell it. I knew it. I felt it in my spirit. And really, the exclamation point of that was being given the catalyst of COVID and pandemic, and time where I wasn't driving kids around and out of the house a lot. And I was in front of the computer. Everybody else was working on homework. So I felt like, my higher power and the universe really just said, okay, you should do this now. So I did.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people did that kind of thing during the pandemic, which I think is a very positive experience. Now, what happens to the person telling the story and the person hearing it when someone finally says the thing that they've been afraid to say out loud?
Well, I would say resonance. If I hear someone sharing something, either in a conversation, in a meeting, in a book, in a podcast, and I have been through that, or I've been through something where someone says something that I immediately connect with or hear in a different way than I've ever heard before, it's sort of like this knife that just pierces right through me, and I feel connected. I feel okay. I feel like I'm not alone. And for someone who grew up feeling pretty lonely, not the fault of my parents, not the fault of the church, just was what it was. I mean, that is huge, to not feel alone in this world. And I said to my kids, just a little sidebar, the other day, we were all sitting around and we were talking about why there are so many kids in our family, aside from the obvious, birds and the bees and how it happens, and how our second half wouldn't be here if I hadn't gotten sober, because my husband and I would have definitely divorced if I'd kept drinking. And our fifth was a surprise baby, but I didn't want her to grow up alone. So we had a sixth. And then I was like, well, we're already doing this. Let's just have a couple more. And so we did. But my point is that the longer I live, the more I have become a subscriber of the concept of, like, I want my kids to have as many people in their corner as possible. And I want to have as many people in my corner as possible. So for anybody out there, I mean, whether that means family of choice, whether that means family that they've never known before IRL in real life, maybe those connections are made through, a website or a person that they follow or listen to on a regular basis, or an author that they've never met. As long as there is that melding of two hearts and that melding of understanding on a heart level, I mean, that's what I hear is the language of the heart. And that is what makes me realize, it's like the whole, definition of namaste, right? The light in me sees the light in you, and in that light we're one. That's what happens to me when I share my story with you and you share yours with me, I think.
Mm-hmm. I would 100% agree with that. Now, at what point, Amy, did you realize that the thing you were most ashamed of, or the things you were most ashamed of, was actually the most important thing that you had to offer?
There's a chapter in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I endorse Alcoholics Anonymous. They do not endorse me. So if I ever mention it, I just want to be clear. So that book, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, has a chapter in it called The Family Afterward. And it talks about this quote by Henry Ford. And essentially what it says, paraphrased, is that experience is our greatest teacher. And so when we have made it through the fire of a difficult circumstance, and we've lived to tell about it, right? Those are the things that can be of value to somebody else going through that fire, that same fire, or an adjacent fire, or a similar fire, right? Like, the whole point being, if someone else made it through, right, that then it's like that hope is sparked, that, oh, well, that person did it, meaning it is possible. It is possible for me to get through it too. And it might not look the same. It might be on a different timeline. It might have 1,000 different factors, right? But if she can do it, maybe I can do it. Maybe I can quit drinking. Maybe I can even write about my story and share it with someone else. And you can. That's the thing, you can. And that's how we connect with each other, and it's how we grow.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of connection, you're building something new with Eternally Amy. Now, we're not, when we were discussing this, you love all the different pillars that you talk about on the show because you believe in being very vulnerable. You have some very, I would say, intimate episodes where you've, been in crisis mode, or there's something happening in your life that you just decided, you know what, I'm going to share it with the world. And I think that is incredibly brave. And especially as a publisher, being able to tap into that yourself. So we're completely, I wouldn't say revamping Eternally Amy, but we're making it more structured in that, why your story matters. We're going to be doing a community, right? That you're starting. The
Yeah.
app we talked about, a place for people who have a story in them that maybe it hasn't come out yet. And you could be an author and you've already published 10 books, and then there's this one story that you're still hanging on to, like, you're welcome in this community too. What is the vision and what are you actually trying to build in that?
Yeah, it's such a good question. Really, really what I'm trying to do is let people have a chance to get it out and to realize that there is someone out there who needs your story, like needed it yesterday, right? And it hasn't been written yet. And so that to me is just so powerful to the uniqueness, the similarities for sure, but also the uniqueness of our story. I just had a phone call the other day with someone who's considering writing a book, and this woman is wanting to share her story of getting into a marriage and then having a tragedy befall their family that was horribly life-changing for all of them. And to the point where she is now like the full-time caregiver for her husband's medical issues and health issues. And like, he can't help her with like anything. They've got little kids. And so, that is a whole thing in and of itself, is like, she didn't have a community of people she could share with, that like, hey, this is freaking hard. Like, I don't need to talk about the wheelchair and the hospital bed, and all of that is important, but I really am drowning here on my own. Like, I feel like no one understands what I'm going through. And she really wanted to provide a sort of a guidebook, or tell her story, so that someone else who goes through that same thing and finds themselves suddenly a medical caregiver would know, oh, I'm not alone. Someone else has gone through this and felt those same feelings. I mean, even really difficult ones, like, I resent my spouse for this happening, and what about my life and my dreams, right? And all of those secret things. Because, there's a saying, an old saying, we're only as sick as our secrets. But how true it is. When I have a secret, it's no good. Not only am I putting a ton of effort in trying to maintain the secret, but also it eats me up and corrodes me from the inside out.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, if someone's listening to this right now and they have a story that they're sitting on, what would you tell them to do next?
I would say start journaling. That's always just the best thing. And I mean journaling like however it works for you. If you're somebody who likes to type it out, then do that. And you know what? I'm not asking like, oh, you need to spend 20 minutes journaling every single day. No, journal when you can, journal when it works and however long it works for, and however many sentences you need to get out on that day, and be okay with it. Like, sometimes I'll look back at a journal entry of mine and I'll go, yeah, that was kind of freaking good. I nailed it. I will really think that. And then I'll share it with someone else and they're like, okay. It's just, we're on different pages that day or whatever. But other times I'll look back on something I've written and I'm like, I don't know what was going on with me today, but that made no sense. And it's all fine. It's just getting in the habit, right, of getting our thoughts out on paper, or on the screen, or however you like to do it. I would say start there. And if you have a jumbled mess of just crumbled up papers, and that's what you're coming to the table with, and you're going, I really need help in trying to shape and polish this, that's what this community will do. That's what pen pals are there for. Is very few people that I have ever worked with have come with like, oh, here's my manuscript and it's in Georgia font and it's double spaced and it's 12 point, it's like, just bring your mess and we'll talk it through.
Yeah. Show up with your mess.
Yeah.
That, there's something to that. I'll have to ponder that. I know that there's going to be an episode on that coming up in our near future. So last thing, and this is similar to the question, but it's different. If you could say one thing to the person who almost didn't press play on this episode we're recording right now, what would it be?
Thank you. Thank you for pressing play, because I feel like that shows an open-mindedness and a willingness to consider putting yourself and your story first, and that maybe, just maybe, your story is of value enough that you could press play and say, I'm just going to see what this is about. And I think that that's a massive first step.
Thank you so much for listening to Eternally Amy, a mum of eight's journey from jail to joy. Amy Liz Harrison is a best-selling author, speaker, 12-step coach, meditation teacher, and recovery advocate. To find out more, please visit amylizharrison.com. You can keep up with Amy on all platforms by following @AmyLizHarrison. Please subscribe and review this podcast. It means so much to us if you do.